Hello everyone and welcome to Halloween series number 4. Today is basically a 2-for-1. I've got both of these backgrounds that I created with the new MFT spiderweb cover-up dynamics, and I showed in the product review video how I created that inlay pattern with them. Basically it was just die cutting it twice, once from orange fizz cardstock once from black, and then just inlaying the alternate colors. So I will link to that video just to show how I did that. And then of course I had to use them. I wasn't going to toss them out after that because you go to all that work, you want to make it into a card. So I came up with a couple of fun ways to use them, and I did my go-to, which is of course use some vellum for a sentiment. And I'm using the new My Favorite Things Spooky Sentiments, and I stamped it, the sentiment onto a strip of vellum with Versamark ink. And then I wanted to emboss it in 2 different colors of embossing powder. So I'm using this is Zing Apricot embossing powder. And I just use a drinking straw and you just cut it at an angle and it kind of creates a little mini scoop. So pour it on the orange and I just hold it kind of at an angle so that the embossing powder will drop downwards and not fall on the rest of the sentiment. And once the orange area was covered, I then did the same thing with black. I don't use black very often. My embossing powder is actually, this one's really old. And it's a detail black. I would have preferred it to be the same as the Zing embossing powders, which is just a standard embossing powder. But it still works. I personally can tell the difference between the two, but it achieved the effect I wanted, which was 2 different colors embossed. So that turned out really fun. And then I die cut some little spiders. This was from the Centerpieces Spooky Window Dynamics. There's this little spider die included. So I die cut some spiders, and I wanted to give them googly eyes, but 1, I couldn't find my googly eyes anywhere, and 2, I think they're way too big for this little die cut anyway. So to kind of get around that, I used some white opal liquid pearls, which again, I was compromising. This would have been perfect with Ranger's white enamel accents, which comes in the same little type of bottle, you know, you squeeze it out and everything else, but it would have been white, which is what I wanted, but I don't have that. Last time I was at Michael's just a few days ago, I looked and they didn't have it either, which totally sucked. So I made do with this and it worked. I just would have preferred the white. But when you use liquid pearls, if you've used it before, you would know what I'm talking about. When you squeeze it out, it creates almost like a little peak and it's hard to get that rounded edge. And normally what you do is hold the cardstock and then flick it from below and that'll kind of settle the little peaks. But with these little guys, that was too difficult. So that's why I grabbed it with the tweezers there and then just tapped it onto my work surface, and that kind of settled those little peaks in the liquid pearls. I let it dry completely, and then I just used one of my multi-liner pens to dot their little eyes. So they've got these cute little, somewhat googly eyes, but yeah, if I had little tiny mini actual googly eyes, it'd be so cute. But yeah, this worked. So I took just some little clear Cool Tack foam tape and snipped off 2 tiny little pieces and just attached it to the back little bodies of the spiders and attached those to my card front after I had wrapped the vellum around and taped that down. And then I'm going to adhere this to the card itself, which is some white cardstock in a standard A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I usually find it good to just kind of line it up by the corner so that I get it straight on my card. And then for the inside of the card, I'm just inking up another Spooky Sentiment stamp with some MFT Orange Fizz ink. I'm going to stamp that on the inside of the card, and then I've got some more little spiders to add. So stamp that, and then kind of figured out where I wanted the little spiders to go, and adhered those in place with just a little dab of liquid glue. And then once I've got them in place, I wanted to make it look like they were hanging from their little, you know, spider web. So I just grabbed the same little multi-liner pen and just freehand drew the little strings, you know, that they would have been attached to. So really cute. I have a major phobia of spiders in real life, but for Halloween, I just think they're adorable. So go figure. I don't mind little paper and stampy spiders, but the real thing, ugh, ugh. Anyway, so for the second card, I wanted to do something different. I don't want to make them completely the same. So I did do the same thing with the vellum, but this time I did it vertically and inked up this Trick or Treat stamp with the Versamark ink. And I was using my anti-static powder tool on both pieces of vellum before I stamped. It just keeps the embossing powder from sticking to everything. And trust me, it makes a difference. There have been times I've just said like, oh, whatever, I'll go without it, and end up with embossing powder. It just clings to everything. So the anti-static powder tool, huge difference. So this time I'm embossing the top and the bottom sentiment with the Zing Apricot embossing powder. And then I'm going to do the middle with the black. And this is where it really helps to hold it on an angle so that it falls off to the side and not get mixed in with the other color. And then heat that with my heat tool till it melts, which only takes a minute. And once I've got that heated, let it cool off for just a couple seconds. And then I'm going to wrap this one around the card front as well and tape that into place. I just use your standard Scotch tape. I buy it in bulk at Costco. Usually you can find it on, you can find it anywhere. It's just standard tape. So yeah, tape that down, and then I grabbed some sequins from my stash. This is a Doodlebug Beetle Black sequins, and accidentally spilled it on the card front there, but I loved how it looked. So I was like, you know, I'm going to do more than I planned. I was only going to add like 2 or 3 originally, but I liked how it looked, how they were just kind of scattered all over the card front. So I went a little nuts and added a ton of sequins. And with these big jars that I've got, I have a lifetime supply of sequins. Like, this did not even make a dent in that jar. I could make like 1,000 cards like this and probably still have sequins left. So I just squeezed out a bit of my Tombow Mono Multi matte just onto the stamp sheet itself, making sure not to get it on the stamps. But that way I can use it, and then I just wipe off any excess with a baby wipe. And placed all the sequins where I wanted with my little quick stick there. And then once it was dry, I die cut a piece of this silver glitter paper. This is from Michaels. And I only needed that little bit around the edge to show as a border. So this is something you can do if you have like specialty papers like this that cost more, or if you're just getting started in card making and scrapbooking and you don't have a lot of supplies, is if you're just creating something to be a border, you can cut the center out of it. So you could either die cut it, or here I just use my paper cutter and then my scissors to snip those little corners that were still attached. And that way I can still use that rest of that silver glitter paper on something else, because you're not going to see it anyway. So nobody's going to know that you've cut out the center to save it. So you can use it for, you know, die cutting something, or you know, another layer or whatever works for you. So that's one little tip. I used to do that way back in the day when I first started like making cards, and I only had, you know, like 3 sheets of cardstock. I would do this with all my layers so that I would actually have, you know, a little bit of cardstock left over to use for other projects. So I adhered that with some Tombow Mono Multi again, and that just gives you a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that the border was straight. And then same with the card, a little bit more Tombow Mono Multi so I can get that straight. And then for the inside of the card, I was originally going to stamp the sentiment, just stamp it on the inside of the card. But then I thought I wanted to do some more embossing on vellum because, one, I'm addicted to it, and I just like the look. Like, when you give cards like this to people, they just, the whole raised, shiny surface of embossing usually kind of gets a nice reaction out of them. So I stamped the sentiment again onto the vellum that I coated with my anti-static powder tool. And then this time I'm just embossing the sentiment with just the black embossing powder. I thought for half a second of doing like a marble look or something, but I just thought I would keep it kind of simple since I'm just doing it for the inside of the card. So did that, and then I'm just going to trim off a little bit with my paper trimmer because I was going to just cut out the sentiment, and then decided while I was in the middle of it that I wanted to use the whole strip. I just thought it kind of looks cool. I like how vellum looks over cardstock. You know, you got that kind of see-through element. So I used a bit more Tombow Mono Multi and just applied it right behind the sentiment so you don't see any of the adhesive peeking out. That's one of the drawbacks with vellum, is you have to just get a little creative with how you attach it because adhesive shows through so easily. But I glued that down, and then to completely, like, I secured a bit more because I don't like, after you heat embossed it, it kind of curls a little bit, which is fine, but I didn't want it to look just curled and kind of gross like that. So I had die cut more of those little spiders, and that way I can glue those over the little dots of glue, and that finishes off the inside of the card. So yeah, as always, there will be a link below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. Any info like that, always check below the video in the description box. I'll have it all there linked for you. And then check out my blog for all the pictures and links and all that fun stuff. And thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping my videos. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.